Oftentimes, we as teachers have lessons that tend to wander or are not as focused as we'd like them to be, or we focus our goals on activities, strategies, and the day-to-day of instruction as opposed to student learning and outcomes. By establishing our learning intentions and success criteria early on, we switch our focus from teaching to learning. Setting learning intentions is a surefire way to ensure that your students are clearly focused on what they're learning. Establishing solid success criteria ensures that your students can keep track of their own learning progress. So, what is a learning intention? Let's keep this simple. A learning intention is a statement you create using student-friendly language that tells the students what they are expected to learn. Learning intentions can be ongoing, revisited, or specific to a lesson. A helpful way of thinking about success criteria is like a to-do list for your learning intentions. Ask yourself, what will your students need to accomplish to show they understand the content? Additionally, what am I as a teacher looking for as evidence of their learning? Let's take a look at an example of an effective learning intention and success criteria for a math class. So, what makes this work? First, you'll notice that the learning intention is written in student-friendly language. Second, by using words like together, students will see that they will be guided throughout the lesson. Third, the success criteria guides decisions the teacher will make about activities used in the lesson. It's also what guides formative assessment. Fourth, it defines potentially confusing words like the word convert. Fifth, it uses purposeful pictures to define digital and analog clocks. By keeping the language simple, defining key or confusing terms, and setting up clear criteria, both the teacher and student are clear about what they are learning and how they're learning it. Let's look at another example, this time one that has more than one learning intention. In this example, the teacher has a new learning intention, but is also revisiting one that has been used throughout the year. So again, what makes this work? First, notice that the second intention, students will state thoughts using complete sentences, is written in a general way for students to see that stating their thoughts in complete sentences is important in every classroom. Second, it's written again in student-friendly language. Finally, each success criteria is defined and broken down into its core components. Using this, students and teachers both clearly understand what they're learning. Main idea statements that form the summary of an informative article, and stating thoughts using complete sentences. They also know how they're going to learn. We've seen some examples of learning intentions and success criteria. Now let's create our own. How do I determine learning intentions and success criteria? The TEKS. In my example, I'm looking at the TEKS, and I'm looking at Grade 3 English Language Arts, Figure 19, B, D, and E. First, I'm going to establish the learning intentions by analyzing the TEKS and putting that into student-friendly language. Figure 19b says, ask literal, imperative, and evaluative questions of text. Figure 19d says, make inferences about text using textual evidence to support understanding. And lastly, Figure 19e says, summarize information in text maintaining meaning and logical order. So here's what I'm thinking when I read these. Students will need to be able to take the author's message beyond the text, cite information, and determine the author's meaning. These are going to become my learning intentions, which is I will be able to carefully read and retain information from an informative article by making inferences, summarizing, and asking questions. The key here is I'm not simply placing the TEKS on the board. Instead, I've provided a learning objective to my students in simple, student-friendly language without changing its intent or meaning. Next, I determine how students will show mastery of their learning. I will participate in a group discussion to build a better understanding of the text. I will use text evidence to support my thoughts. I will use information from the text to clarify my questions. Together with my peers, I will break down text to find key information. After developing my intentions and criteria, it's time for me to choose the right activities and resources. For this example, I use reciprocal teaching because it is a group activity that specifically incorporates summarizing and questioning, while the clarifying and predicting components help with making inferences. After a couple of days working towards mastery of the learning intentions for reading, I will transition my students to a writing piece that supports the two highlighted TEKS. Each student will create a short writing piece responding to one part of the text and conversation they had with their group. 3 learning intentions will help guide the instruction. I will accurately state ideas by writing complete sentences. I will add words or phrases to sentences that add depth to my writing. I will learn the structure of sentences and gain sentence sense through sentence expansion exercises. In this example, one set of success criteria supports the 3 learning intentions. When presenting a learning intention and success criteria to students, invite the students into the conversation that creates a purpose for learning. Activate prior knowledge so students have a way to connect new learning. Let me model for you how this might look in a classroom. Last week, we learned some new words that we have been using in our writing. Take a moment to think and write down as many of those words as you can recall. Give time for students to think and write, then continue. Now you will partner share the words. Partner A, go first, then B, and go back and forth. I pause to allow students time to talk, then I continue. This week, we are going to add to our list 5 new words. I will say each word and then you repeat it. I take a moment to share the words. I believe after you have learned the meaning of these words, you will be able to use them at home during conversations with your parents and really impress them. Also, the words will be in the article we are going to read about the Alamo. Because you understand the words, you will comprehend what the author is saying. So, our learning intention is, everyone read it aloud together. I will understand the meaning of vocabulary words and use the words accurately. The way we will know that you have learned the meaning of the new words is by being able to, everyone together, pick the correct word when given a definition, and create sentences that accurately use vocabulary words. Do a quick partner talk about what we are going to do today. Here is your sentence starter. Today we will. Be sure to use your own words. Pause for the partner talk. Carrie, I liked what you said to Brandon. Would you please share it with the whole class? So in this example, I engaged the students in a conversation. I set a meaningful purpose and I activated prior knowledge. There are 3 total types of intentions. We just covered learning intentions, but there's also social learning intentions and language learning intentions. Social learning intentions set student expectations about how to act towards others. Language learning intentions focus on reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills we want students to develop regardless of the academic setting. In other words, language learning intentions should be used in math, science, social studies, art, music, band, and all other classes. Both the language and social learning intentions are developed through the same process as a learning intention, just focusing on different areas of students' development. Here's an example of a social learning intention I used when I noticed students were not attentively listening to others. I will quietly listen to understand what others are saying. My success criteria includes: I will look at the person speaking. I will not interrupt the person speaking to state my thoughts. I will politely ask questions for clarity. Here are a few other takeaways about learning intentions and success criteria. First, when students become familiar with success criteria, you may involve them in determining their own measures of success. Some simple ways to do this is to allow them to see an end product for a project. Then have the students collaborate together with you to create the success criteria. You also might complete a model, I do it portion of the lesson, and then reveal the learning intentions and see if they can identify success criteria. Finally, let students assess a completed task to determine the success criteria. The longer and more complex the assignment, the more time you should devote to making sure that students understand the success criteria. Goal setting is an essential element teachers should use with students. It has an effect size of 0.56. Keep in mind that an effect size of 0.40 is equal to 1 year of growth. Goal setting and learning intentions go hand in hand. Setting expectations effect size is 0.43. This is the success criteria. Finally, formative assessment is determined by and focused on success criteria. Formative assessment's effect size is outrageously high, 0.90. There are 3 critical questions students should be able to answer during any lesson. What am I learning? This is the learning intention, and it falls under the influence of mastery learning with an effect size of 0.58. Why am I learning this? Deals with students' motivation and has an effect size of 0.48. Finally, how do I know I learned the information? This is the success criteria. This allows students to assess their own level of success and has an effect size of 1.44. And with that, I can't think of a better way to end our session.